Hey, what's up, and welcome to the Two Goat Show. We're your hosts, Miriah and Steph. Steph, what's up? How you doing? Happy Thursday.
Happy Thursday. How's it going, Miriah? I'm doing great. All things are well in 49ers land, and so I'm just enjoying the moment. Ready for week 15.
Yep, me too. I can't wait to talk to you about this game because you were there. So, yeah, let's get into it. Well, first, want to say what's up to the chat. Hope you guys are doing great. Happy Thursday to you all. Those that are here for maybe the first time, or you're here on my channel and not on Steph's, please make sure that you are subscribed to both channels. The link to Steph's channel, Steph 49K, is in the description box of my video. So if you're not subscribed to her, please make sure you click on that link and subscribe to her, and vice versa. Please, we appreciate it. But yeah, what's up, chat? Hope you guys are doing well. We appreciate you guys being here. But yeah, Steph, how was it? How was it there in person? Was this the first time you've been to a 49ers Seahawks game? And if so, how was that experience with, the whole thing? How was it?
I want to say it'd been a while since I'd gone to a 49ers Seahawks game. And the first one I went to was actually my first 49ers game ever.
Oh, wow.
Wait, was it? I don't know, but maybe I'm just thinking of like my first game at Levi's. But I do remember it was one of the first games of the season. I don't think it was my first ever, but it was a first game of the season against the Seahawks. Ted Ginn had two return touchdowns. So that was pretty big.
Man, I miss that guy.
Right? Yeah. And so that was my first 49ers Seahawks game. And so I want to say it had been a while, and maybe up until, this past Sunday was I hadn't gone to one against the Seahawks since, just because I hated them so much. And Miriah, like for the longest time, we couldn't get over that hump. We didn't know if we could beat them. It was always that, right? So I didn't want to
dreaded the game.
Exactly. So God. I didn't want to subject myself to that kind of abuse and trauma. So I was just like, you know what? I'm not going to do it. But this year it felt right. It felt right. It felt good. And so, I wanted the smoke this year. The energy was great though. It was a fun game to go to, and it had its moments where, the game is too close for comfort, as always, anytime you play the Seahawks or sometimes just any divisional opponent, right? Like you're going to have those, but the 49ers came away with a win. And I think it was a team win. So felt good about it.
Yeah. How was there a lot of Seahawks fans there? Because on TV it didn't really look like there was too much blue, green, whatever their ugly colors are.
There really wasn't at all. I've been to other games this season where there were more fans of the opposing team.
It's so weird because, I know that the 49ers fans travel, great. But, you look at, and obviously I'm not at the games at Levi's, so I can only see what from, on TV. But whenever we play home games, it never looks like there's a lot of the opposing team's jerseys there. So, I don't know if 49ers fans are just that great about, maybe people are too scared to come to games there because they know their team's going to lose. I wouldn't want to go either. That would be like, us in the past going to a game in Seattle. Why would you want to put yourself through that hell, if your team's going to lose. But yeah, it seems like from what I remember, just off the top of my head, thinking back to the last how many ever games, that we've had at home, it never seems like there's too many opposing jerseys in the stands.
It's true. I mean, 49ers know how to hold down Levi's. I would say the only teams that travel well and it's not just like specific to Levi's, but they travel well everywhere. The Cowboys fans do
Yeah.
travel pretty well, and also the Packers, of course. I'm pretty sure the
Mhm.
Steelers do too, even though I didn't go to that week 1 game, but
Yeah. I know, D, who we had on our show at the very first show of the season for the Steelers. I feel like she's at every Steelers game, I swear. Home, on the road, like those fans,
they're
they're
die
faithful
hard.
to their
Yeah.
team being like
Yeah.
Dookie. They're still riding for them, man. I know
Yeah.
she posted a video last week or whatever, their last home game, and like all the fans were there booing, at the end of the game, booing the Steelers fans are booing their own team. And she's like videoing it, and she's like, "This will never be me. Like, I just can't bring myself to do it." And there's like the entire stadium's there booing. Like, I'm cracking up. um, so, I know that we normally didn't do this, but we did it last week. And I thought, we had some good selections, the two of us. So let's give a couple flowers out to some players from this game. I'll start, and, I'm going to go with kind of a little duo here. And that's going to be Lenore and Ambry.
Mm-hmm.
To lose Charvarius on the second play of the game, going up against Metcalf, going against Lockett, like we talked about this, the last couple of weeks, like, that was no scrub of a duo for our cornerbacks to be facing for
Right.
3 weeks in a row now. We know that Charvarius had locked up Metcalf when they met, a couple of weeks ago. But when I saw Charvarius come out of the game, like I was like, oh shit, like I was like, this is not going to be good, right? Like I started to like panic for a minute because I'm like, what's going to happen here? Like what kind of moving around are they going to do? And then when I seen, okay, they're moving Lenore outside, it's going to be Lenore and Ambry, and I talked about this last night on our show. Like I never thought I would mention this thing together, and that is when I seen it's Lenore and Ambry out there, I felt more confident. I never thought that would be a sentence I would say, considering how their careers with us started out, right? But man, they've been playing great football. And the way that they played in this game, for DK to only have 2 catches, and he was completely shut down after that, and you could tell by the way he was acting. They were under his skin the entire game, even before the him and Fred Warner situation. He's over there breaking the helmet warmer and throwing his helmet around, fighting with the wide receivers on the sidelines, yelling at everybody. So for them to pretty much lock, neither of the guys they didn't have 100 yards. They didn't have a 100-yard receiver, so for them to be able to pretty much lock them down like that, and for Lenore to be able to obviously practice all week and start in the slot and be able to move outside like it's nothing, right? And so hats off to them, because they, they're, like I said, there was a point in time when we thought probably Ambry wasn't even going to be on the team anymore, and both of them are playing great football, so hats off to them.
Yeah, that's definitely a good one, and I'm glad that you put them in as a duo, because I think you can't really have one without the other. I think both of those guys, on the outside, have been huge for this team, and I kind of had the same sentiment that Mooney Ward being out, oof, that can't be good. But somehow, some way, they were able to hold it down. They've been holding it down for the last few weeks, so I guess it shouldn't be too surprising. But kind of like Mooney Ward said, and I believe it was on Eric Armstead's podcast, like just having Lenore go from starting the game on the inside at nickel and then having to abruptly like go back outside and not missing a beat,
Mm-hmm.
like that just says a lot about the type of player that Lenore is, and
Right.
how prepared he is for the game. So Yeah, I appreciated the effort from both of those guys. As far as, player I want to give a flowers to, I think this week I'm gonna stick with mostly defense, because I was impressed with the way that the defense kind of persevered and overcame some of the injuries that they had to face. And so I'll say Javon Kinlaw. I mean, he had an expanded role this week with
Mhm.
Eric Armstead out, and he still didn't play all of the snaps, which is fine. I'm totally okay with that, because that has worked for him this season. He played 35 snaps. So in this game, he had 4 pressures, 1 sack, 3 hurries, and 2 stops. So I got to give it up for Kinlaw. And it looks like, with Eric Armstead still being out of practice, Eric Armstead probably going to be
Mhm.
out this week as well. So Kinlaw, you know, another man that's going to step up this week.
Yeah, I like it. And yeah, he's been playing great football since, like, this season. Like we talked about it, I think last week. This season he's been playing pretty well, but since coming out of the bye, of course, the whole defense has stepped it up with sideline Steve. Everybody's playing great football since sideline Steve's down there. But yeah, Kinlaw, he's been playing great since coming out of the bye, and you know Eric Armstead, that's a hard guy to replace, starting in that D line. But that's Kinlaw's biggest teacher is Armstead. So I expected Kinlaw, since the way he's been playing, I expected him to be ready to take on that role. Yeah, and he played great. And man, every time I look at that guy, I just can't believe that somebody that size could have a 6-pack, could have like an 8-pack. Like, how is it even humanly
Like Aaron
possible?
Donald. Aaron Donald's the
Yeah.
same way. Like, he's so bulky, but he's got a 6-pack.
Like, he's like what? Like almost 300 pounds and he has a 6-pack.
It's
Like,
crazy.
that's
Couldn't be
amazing.
me.
Yeah, I know. Man, that's amazing. I'm going to go with a special teams guy, and that's going to be Mitch Wishnowsky. He's
Nice.
been balling this entire season. Like, he's been kicking like crazy. But in this game, the fact that and I hate that it was brought back because of freaking penalties, but the fact that he took that ball and just ran with it and wasn't coached to do that, wasn't nothing. And then when he was asked about it after the game, like, we don't get to hear from him that often, right? So it's like you almost forget. Of course, that he's going to have an accent, but you hardly hear him, right? So after the game, when they're interviewing him, and for him to pretty much be like, yeah, nobody told me, like, I just did it, and they're like, so, like, they're trying to get more out of him. He's like, I don't know, I just did it. I just, and for him to say, like, they asked him, oh, did you see that on film that made you think that, you'd be able to do that against the Seahawks? And he's like, nope. And they're like, okay, so the coach didn't tell you nothing? Nope.
Just
Like, yeah, he's like, I just got the ball in my hands and I just seen it was open, so I just took off and ran for it. And the fact that he hit 20 miles per hour, like, that's crazy. Like,
Did
he's
he?
so, yeah, yep.
Wow.
He's so athletic, and it's like we never take advantage of that. Like Kyle even joked and said, oh yeah, I called my first fake punt ever, joking around. But it's like, well, now that the guy can do that and has the ability, like, that should be something we got in the bag, like, if he feels like, okay, the edge is not there, he's not rushing down on me, whatever, and I feel like I could take this ball and go for the first down, fucking,
I
I'm all
mean,
for that shit, man.
he did it. He did it. It would have converted had not
Mm-hmm.
been for the penalty. I think had all the players kind of known what was about to happen, they would have probably been a little
Yeah.
more
Mm-hmm.
careful. So yeah, I mean, I definitely wouldn't be mad if the 49ers threw that in sometime in the future, maybe come playoff time. It is exciting. So I did like that. And Sour Death Sam, who you guys may follow on Twitter, he said, I like that Mitch Wishnowsky purely went off of the vibes on that one.
Yeah. Yeah. Like, that was awesome. And like I was like walking through my room at the time, and I'm like watching the TV as I'm walking, and I'm like looking, and I'm like, like just expecting, because I'm like, okay, he's just gonna kick it, like I don't need to pay
Yeah,
attention. I
you
go
look
watch the corner, and I
away.
heard him see him running, and I'm like, what the hell's going on? I'm like screaming, I'm like, go, go, go. And then all of a sudden you see all these flags flying. It's just like, oh no, like you already know what's coming.
Yeah.
And then for that penalty, like I felt so bad, because it's like Ronnie Bell, like he slipped and
Yeah.
slides into the freaking guy, and it's like you could tell he felt like shit. Like I thought looked like he was gonna cry over there on the sideline after that. Like to be such an awesome play, like something that hardly ever happens, and then to know that like you slide, like you fall and slip into a guy, and that freaking ruins it. Like, oh my god, that gotta be shitty.
Yeah, I thought the defender kind of sold it well. Like I
Mm-hmm.
feel like as soon as he saw Ronnie Bell slip, he was like, "Oh, let me
Yep,
just
yep,
let
of
me just
course.
topple over him real
Mm-hmm.
quick." Yeah.
Um, Go ahead if you have any more flowers to get out, and then we'll go ahead and get to
Oh
James'
yeah.
comment here.
I mean, like you said last time, I think the obvious ones are obvious. Like,
Yeah.
yes, we can give praise to Debo. He had a great game. I think Brock Purdy had a great game too. Um, I'm a stick with the defense still. I'm actually gonna go Nick Bosa, which is, he always gets praised, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I think in this game in particular, I saw him more involved in the run game. That's something I've seen him more involved with in the past 2 weeks. That's kind of caught my eye a little bit, and I like it. I mean, he also had 8 pressures, 2 sacks, 6 hurries, a batted pass, 4 tackles, 6 stops. But yeah, there was a couple of times he was quick to get to the running back. And the previous week I thought about, there was a time where Jalen Hurts tried to tuck it and run, and Nick Bosa was right there. So
Mm-hmm.
he's been more patient. I think that's something in my 49K Player of the Week show that we did on Tuesday with Weston. He said that he's a little more patient, or like he's noticed that he's a little more patient. Weston said this about
Mm-hmm.
Bosa. And I think like you kind of see it when he's rushing from the inside and he's doing those stunts. He kind of he's waiting for it to kind of
Mm-hmm.
open up for him, and then he'll take that lane. He's not being too aggressive where it's like hurting him in his position to make a play. So I think he's been a little more sound, and just like it's made him a little more well-rounded as a run defender too as of late, I think.
Yeah. I like it. I like it. Let's go ahead, James. We appreciate the donation. Says trap games aren't always necessarily bad things, especially at this point in the season. However, because of the NFC race, Niners have no games to give.
So to add context here, I named my video "Is Arizona a Trap Game" for the 49ers because it's not because I think the 49ers are going to be the type of team to like drop a game because they're being sloppy or things like that. But the injuries on defense are piling up. And I think it's getting to a point where it could catch up to them in this game. Like I mentioned, Eric Armstead being out last week and then not having Mooney Ward. I
Mm-hmm.
commend Kinlaw. I commend Ambry Thomas and Lenore for stepping up. And, I think altogether the defense did a good job of stepping up and, keeping the Seahawks at bay. But the one concern I have now, you have Javon Hargrave, your other defensive
Mm-hmm.
tackle, who's hurt, who is still missing practice.
Yeah.
Mooney Ward is still missing practice. Now, he's moving well based on some of the videos that beat writers posted earlier today. He's still not practicing those. So, keep all of that in mind. I'm just thinking, look, if Eric Armstead and Javon Hargrave and Travarius Ward and Dre Greenlaw are out, and possibly like that's an issue,
Yeah.
right? Like that
Right.
could be you're seeing too many reserve guys, too many second, third stringers on the field. And at that point, it could get a little iffy. Now, I still think the 49ers have an offense and a great offense that can score a lot of points, and they're not dealing with any significant injuries on that side of the ball. So that's the good thing, right? There's still
Right.
that. But when I talk about this game possibly being a trap game, I'm looking at the injuries.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. And especially going against, it's not like we're going against Arizona and the backup quarterback anymore, like this is a much different team. And although the
Exactly.
record don't show, but this is a much different team than we faced the first time. And we know Kyler it's not, say what you want, but like he's fast, he's elusive. Like when you think that he's about to go down, he's about to get sacked, all of a sudden he squeezes out through both his legs and he's gone. Like, so like we got to have some guys. Like we can't expect all of our backups to play in a game and us stand a chance. Like, come on. But yeah, I definitely hope, our guys that are there, like, our regular guys, Fred, obviously, he's going to make sure these guys are ready. And besides injuries, they're not just going to, be relaxed for this team.
Yeah, I think so too. I think the talent gap is too large. There shouldn't be, even with injuries, that the 49ers would lose this game. But if they're not on their P's and Q's, if we're seeing missed tackles, right? If, we're not seeing dudes on assignments, could happen. But I think they're going to be focused and ready for the challenge that is Kyler Murray.
Yep. Again, James, thank you. We appreciate you. Michael Medina, thank you so much. We appreciate you. Says Steph, what makes you more nervous? An important player like Debo returning kickoffs, or us letting a small wide receiver who wears number 10 return punts? Chills.
Yeah, that's enough to to make you nervous. Look, I had this debate earlier in the week with Wayne and John Chapman, and I said, like, I don't mind Debo returning kicks, but I also think because of the risk that comes with it, I think it'd be smart for the 49ers to kind of pick when you need that spark. You don't always need Debo Samuel back there. Like sometimes you just need someone who's gonna fair catch it. That was kind of like the point that Wayne and John were bringing home because it's too big of a risk. Um, Obviously, I like the idea of having a player as electric as Debo Samuel back there because the 49ers have needed that for so long. We were just talking about Ted Ginn, right? Or at the top of the show. And it's like for the longest time, Ted Ginn was like the last 49er to have a return touchdown until just, a few years ago when it was Richie James. But they just haven't had a spark in that department for a really long time. And so for selfish reasons, I do like Debo having it, but you're at this point in the season, you're close to the playoffs, and you know how important Debo is. You know how explosive he's been these last few weeks and how he can, on offense, he can call his game, call his number, right? So I think for that reason, just, be a little smarter with it and pick and choose when you need that spark. I don't think it needs to be every single like kick return.
Yeah, I'm with you. Because every time I would see Debo like run it out, and especially like when you're like running it out from the end zone, like I hate that, because it's just so unnecessary. Like you're barely going to get to the 25 anyways, and then you're taking hits that you wouldn't have had to take if you would have just, taken a knee down there. And it's just like, but every time I see him running out, it's just like, oh my God, please, 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 like, because, oh my God, I would be sick if he fucking got hurt
We all
returning,
would.
and like you said, especially this late into the season when playoffs are just around the corner. If something does happen, it's like you don't have that much time to heal and get back, like you're cutting it close now. But yeah, that the first game when Ray got hurt and he was out, I had put out a tweet that says, oh, do we finally get to see number 10 returning, like returning kicks? And all the comments, like I wasn't even expecting, like I was excited to just at least get to see Ronnie Bell on the field some,
Yeah.
And the comments I got were like, no, God, please, no, like let Devo do it, like all this. And then of course, the very first one he gets in there and freaking muffs it, luckily it went out of bounds there, but it was like,
Right.
oh my God. Like, I know like that when that happened, like there was so many, 49er fans at that time to see a number 10 jersey back there muffing a freaking punt. Just like, oh my God, no. So yeah, I'm like right on the edge of it, like I don't want to see Ronnie back there doing it anymore, but it's like, like he has to get more comfortable, right? Like,
Yeah. And
so
he's
it's
already
just like,
doing
I don't
punts,
know.
so, like,
Yeah,
if it's an issue of not trusting him, he wouldn't be doing punts either,
right.
like, I don't know.
Right. Yeah. Um, Appreciate you, Michael. Thanks so much. Let me ask you this question. So we saw the Cowboys this week beat the Eagles, obviously, which, gave us the number 1 seed for now. Cowboys number 2, dropped Philly down to the 5th seed, 4th, 5th. With the teams that we've seen, obviously the Cowboys team as of late looks a lot different than the Cowboys team that we faced towards the beginning of the season. The Eagles team that seemed to start off so strong has now dropped 2 games in a row and now faces the Seahawks this week. More than likely, we're going to have to see one of these, if not both of these teams in the playoffs. But let's just say we're going to see one of them for this conversation. Which one of these teams would you rather see and why?
Miriah, I'm gonna put my cocky hat on for a second, and I'm gonna say it doesn't matter. It really doesn't matter. I mean, like, I think the 49ers have proven that they can beat either of these teams, and not just beat them, but spank the hell out of them. And so that alone gives me the confidence, all the confidence in the world in the 49ers beating them any which way if they needed to. Again, honestly, it doesn't even matter if the 49ers are at home or not. Like at this point, it's looking like the 49ers will be at home because it got the 1 seed, so that's great. But I don't think it matters. I think, bearing any injuries, right? Like that's the only thing standing in the 49ers way of anything is injury, and that having like an impact on the outcome of a game. But other than that, like I gotta feel good about the Niners going up against either of those teams.
Yeah, I feel that way as well. Like I'm not scared to face either one. However, I
My
would like
Wi-Fi
to.
slow, or like you kind of froze for a sec, Mariah. I don't know.
I feel
Is it
like
just
your
me?
your your whole camera's out and you were cutting in and out the whole time you were talking.
Oh
So
no.
I don't know which one of us it is, but you're all blurry to me. Chat, can you hear me? Who can you hear? Can
I
you
can hear
hear
you
us?
now. I was having some trouble hearing you a
Okay.
second ago.
But I would like I'm not scared to face either one. I'm confident in this 49ers team to face either one. However, I would love to kick the Cowboys out of the playoffs again for the 3rd year in a row. Like would bring me great joy. And for us older fans, especially, the Cowboy hate is a lot deeper. So, we get greater joy, I think, out of beating them. And just Cowboys fans, even though Eagles fans are such pieces of crap, I just got to the point where I don't even like discuss the game with them. So there's not even like no back and forth. Like I have friends that are Cowboys fans, like followers on Twitter, X, whatever, that are Cowboys fans. Obviously, Ashley, who we had on the show, is Cowboys fan. So I have a back and forth, with these people. So it's just a more fun thing for us, for me. if the 49ers go in there and just beat the crap out of the Cowboys again. And even more so too, because like the whole Brock Purdy MVP race, it's like Brock and Dak that, everybody has at the 1 and 2, that seem to be, competing up there for the MVP. So yeah, I'm just so sick of hearing about Dak this, Dak that, Dak this, and the Cowboys everything. The 49ers, even though they're the 1 seed and playing out of their mind, like it's hardly any talk about the 49ers. It's always the Cowboys this, Cowboys that. Like I'm just so sick of it. So I would just love nothing more than for the 49ers to kick their ass again.
Yeah, I think either one would be pretty sweet.
So last night, and I know that you didn't watch this, but there are some points that I wanted to talk about with it was the Richard Sherman podcast. He had Jair Brown on there and did an interview with him. If you haven't seen it, I suggest you check it out. It was pretty good. They talked about a lot of good stuff. I'm for those that watch my show, they know that I'm a huge Jair Brown fan already. So like I just loved it. But there's a couple things that they talked about that I wanted to talk to you about. One of those, Richard was talking to Jair Brown about how the guys that are vets now to Jair Brown were rookies or in their first, second year when Richard Sherman was with the team. He said, like I was a vet then, and like I was, these guys is they were my rookies. I was their vet, when I was there, and now these guys, are your vet and you're their rookie. He's like, so I know that, these guys, like, they know how to prepare. They know how to, day in and a day out. They know how to take care of their bodies. They know how to play the right way. Like all this, he's saying like pretty much like he knows that because he was the vet that was there to teach him all that stuff, to teach him the right way to do things, right? To teach him how to watch film and, all this stuff. And while they were saying that, Richard they were talking about the Super Bowl run in 2019. And he talked about what, I'm trying to think what he has said that made him say this, but I forget exactly, but he had said something like, I know that the guys that are on the team now, they're vets, they're pros. They know what to do this time around for this Super Bowl run because they've been through it already, right? And he says the first time for them, right? It was in Miami, right? And he says, maybe he goes, the guys were young then, and it was the Super Bowl was in Miami. So maybe they did a little more than they should have. Okay. He says, but I can promise you this time around, they're going to be locked in.
Is he like insinuating that, they might have partied hard in Miami?
Yeah, because it was in Miami.
Okay.
That's the first time I've heard a single mention about anything about what happened in Miami prior to the game, right? Like we all know, obviously, they lost the Super Bowl and then still went to the concert, whatever, and like we're out partying and all this shit, even after losing the Super Bowl. But for him to say, but I promise this time around, they're going to be locked in. So he said, in that conversation, he says, so they know what to expect this time. They were young then, and it was in Miami. They did it probably a little bit too much that they should have, but I promise this time they're going to be locked in. Like that 2019 team, I had so much confidence in that season. Like there was no doubt in my mind that they weren't going to go into that Super Bowl and freaking win. And then for them to just like, I don't know, like it wasn't, everybody wants to blame it on Jimmy in that throw, but the whole team seemed off that whole game.
Yeah, they were 10 minutes away from it. Like that to me, that's like a full team blame. I don't know if I could even blame, the rookies or the young players who went
Mhm.
hard in Miami. I don't think we could put all the blame on Jimmy either, although he certainly has a bit of a hand in it. Kyle maybe has a bit of a hand in it as well. So, it is what it is. Like at this point, it hurts, but I've moved on
Yeah.
from that one. I guess like to get little tidbits of it now is interesting. And like Mooney Ward when he was on Eric Armstead's podcast, that came out yesterday, and you hear him saying that the game plan for them was to force Jimmy to throw.
Yeah.
Uh, it's just funny we're getting like these little tidbits of information now. And I guess like at this point, it being 2023 and this version of the 49ers, I feel even more confident about them. More confident than last year's, more confident than 2019. So I'm just focusing on the present. And I think it's kind of nice, I guess, that like Richard Sherman had that conversation with Jair Brown because
Mhm.
him being the rookie, it's like it was kind of
Mhm.
like a warning, like, hey, you better not, because it's gonna be in Vegas. Like we
Yeah,
know there's gonna be
exactly.
festivities, there's gonna be a lot of like temptation out there to want to get your party on before the game. And not that they can't have fun throughout the week, because it's fine throughout the week, but as long as
Mhm.
it's not like before the game or
Yeah,
any the night before. I don't know.
exactly.
Um, but yeah, I think Jair Brown hearing that, like he'll be like, oh, like we can't mess this up kind of thing. And
Mhm.
he can kind of pass that on to some of the other young rookies too. The good thing is there aren't many rookies or
Right.
many like young players who have like starting roles on this team right now, or just like significant roles like that. So I don't think it would be as impactful, but still, it's nice to get that warning.
Yeah. And I feel more confident in this team this season to get it done because not
Yeah,
only is there obviously there's the Ravens on the other side, but there's not really the Chiefs that season in 2019, they were like a freaking powerhouse. Like I don't feel like there's one of those on the other side this year. Like going into the season, all we heard was talks about how the AFC was so much better than the NFC right now, and they had the better quarterbacks, they had the better teams. Well, if you look at it right now, that sure ain't the case. And I know a lot of quarterbacks have gotten hurt, but um the AFC is just I'm not scared of them very much. And
yeah,
I
yeah,
just feel like, so not only I feel like there's a easier way to win the Super Bowl, in the path, but our offense this season is so fucking good. Like we didn't have that before. Like we
exactly.
were struggling, and like it was field goal, field goal, field goal. Like we needed Robbie Gold. We needed a Robbie Gold
Yeah,
then
yeah,
because he had to kick every freaking 5 minutes, like we couldn't fucking score touchdowns. We have the team now to put up points. And I talked about this last night. Like back, in that season, if the defense had an off day, we were in trouble. Because the offense they couldn't carry the defense. The defense had to do all the carrying. So when they had an off game, then we were in trouble. Now the offense, if they have a off day, God forbid, they can't put up 30 plus points. We have the defense that can save us. If the defense
yeah.
has an off day, we have finally the offense that could carry the freaking team. We just have to hope and pray that they don't both have an off day in the same day
Yeah,
because I don't think that the special teams is going to carry them.
right. It's definitely the most balanced 49ers team that we've seen. And it's not just balanced like, oh, they're both middle of the pack balance. No, they're both like top 5, top 10 in offensive defensive categories, right? So, I think yeah, it's a great feeling to be in, because now when you look at the offense, which you could have poked holes in the past, you can't really do that now. Like what really is your game plan? to stop the 49ers, it's really a hope and a prayer. Like it's oh, we got to stop Christian McCaffrey. That's a hope and a prayer. Oh,
Yeah.
like we got to force Brock Purdy to throw. We're going to blitz the hell out of him. That's a hope and a prayer cuz he's been like gashing that multiple times. And then on the defensive side of the ball, what was the issue with the defense last year? Oh, they were giving up a lot of like explosive plays.
Yeah.
Like, yes, their defensive line is this good, but they get beat over the top. They're going to give up the big play. That's how we get them. That doesn't exist this year.
Nope.
Like they're keeping everything in front of them. Their bend don't break. And once they know what you're trying to do on on offense, you're gonna have a hard time like trying to move the ball on them, for the rest of the game and in the second half and whatnot. So yeah, it's crazy because like all the things that maybe were issues in the past, it just are not issues right now, and it's difficult to poke holes in them. Like I said, really the only thing, and this is as true as it has ever been, the only thing standing in their way is the potential of injuries.
Yep, I agree. One more thing. I thought this was funny. Michael, push for a solid 1.5 hours. That's the formula to beating the Niners.
Even that wouldn't work.
One more thing that I thought, well, there's a couple things I'm going to all tie in together from the interview. And we had heard from Steve Wilkes talk about in a recent interview, I don't know, maybe a couple weeks ago, when he was talking about Jair Brown, he had talked about, a lot of people obviously don't see, but Jair Brown's been putting in the work. He's been meeting with Daniel Bullock after practice to put in, more additional time to go over film and, to prepare so that he was ready. So we heard that from Steve Wilkes. And then in this interview, Jair Brown talks about how he thought that, and a lot of players obviously I'm sure think this, right, that he thought he should have been drafted earlier than what he was drafted. He talked about how he was going to come out into the draft his junior year, but he felt like he still had something to prove. Like there was still more that he wanted to put on tape. He said, so he went back his senior year and like he became, a player that could do everything. He was blitzing, he was, doing all these different things so that he could put all this on tape. And he said that his junior year, they were saying that he was probably like going to get drafted in, rounds 3 to 5. And so he said that he went back his, senior year, put in all the work. And he said, like he worked his ass off, just put in so much time, he was the leader of the defense, so much stuff. And, he's like, to put all that on tape and for pretty much nobody to even give a shit, he felt like, and he's like, but after that he was drafted, obviously when he was drafted the 49ers, he started to think about it as like, well, I could have been drafted in the first round, think about all the players that were drafted, that go number 1 overall, number 2 overall, number 3 overall, whatnot. And they go to a shitty team. They go to a shitty organization, And Sherman talked about him too, like, like how that's how he felt coming out of the draft, obviously, that he was slighted and, people weren't weren't seeing his talent and whatnot. So like, but, Sherman even told him, like, what could you imagine? Like, oh, and then Jair Brown said, the fact that obviously then he's drafted to a team and he's not the starter, like people, when you come out and you get drafted, like you want to start, like you don't want to have to be sitting on the bench behind people, and he's like, so if you would have got drafted sooner, and they brought up, the Panthers, just for an example, like if you would have got drafted to the Panthers, Richard told him, you could have got drafted to the Panthers and you could have been starting. But then look at what kind of team you're on. Look at, the team around you. Look at the organization, how it is. Like you're losing and you're a starter and you could be putting up numbers yourself, but the defense around you shitty, like the team around you shitty. So all that. But, and Jair Brown's like, he's like, that's what I had to realize. Like I went to the best situation possible. He's talking about like, I'm learning from guys that are going to be in the Hall of Fame. He's like, when you can go in and you got a Fred Warner as your captain, as your leader, when you got a Nick Bosa, when you have all these guys that you can learn up from, he's like, you have to. He's like, I learned, I realized real fast, like, that's the best situation I could be in. And yeah, I wasn't starting. He's like, while I wasn't starting, I knew that I had to do whatever I could to get ready so that when and if my number was called, I was ready. And he said that, yeah, he said himself, he put in extra time with Daniel Bullock. And he said, Daniel Bullock's a film junkie. And that guy watches film so much. And so that's all, like, Jair Brown's just been watching film in the weight room, putting extra time on the field. And he said, being ready when your number is called is one of the most honorable things that you could do for your team. He said, I didn't want to let them down. He's like, I didn't want to let Fred Warner down. I didn't want to let Nick Bosa down. I didn't want to let the DB room down. I didn't want to let Bullock down. He's like, I didn't want to let the 49ers organization down. He's like, so I knew that I had to do whatever I had to do to be ready when my number was called. And I'm like, how do we luck into this? Like, yeah, he thought he should have been drafted sooner. Like, we find him in the third round. Like, he's a leader, like, as a rookie already, getting called in the middle of the season, and comes right in. He's breaking down the huddle for this last game, like, this guy is a stud. Like, I cannot wait to see him and Huff together. Like, we got a stud freaking tandem, hopefully for years to come. What are your thoughts on all that?
Yeah, I mean, he's a super mature kid, and I think it's obvious in his answers, right? And even before this interview with Richard Sherman, as you hearing him talk, you get that sense. And also I think you see him play and he plays like a grown man. Like, he plays like he knows what he's seeing, he knows what he's doing out there. He has the physique already of a veteran. So I really, of course, am excited for him as well. And just the fact that he's been able to step in and him not really miss a beat. Like, there really hasn't been that big of a drop off, if at all, between him and Huff. And that's crazy because Huff's been in the league for a few years now, and Jair Brown is just coming in and he's already having that impact. He, like, kind of like he was saying though, like, he benefits from being able to learn from some of those guys and soak up the game from some of those guys. And he has, like, the mental side of it, the drive, the maturity to then apply it to his game. And so, yeah, I think the 49ers did luck out with a player like Jair Brown. He perfectly fits the mold of what it means to be a Niner, right?
Yeah.
And so I love that. If that was like a Steve Wilkes pick, like, bravo to him, but it also felt like just a pick the 49ers would have probably loved to make anyway. So yeah, just feeling great about him, and he should be starting next season for sure. No doubt about that.
Yeah, like, I think Gibson, and he talked about Gibson, they him and Sherman both talked about how, like, he's so good and doesn't get near enough credit. And Jair Brown talked about how Gibson's been, like, has taught him so much, like, he's been huge to his learning process. But I mean, and Gibson's been great, but we know this year he was already questioning whether, it took him to decide whether he's going to retire. And, the only reason he came back, one of the main reasons he came back, was because he wanted to play with Huff again and obviously make this run with the 49ers. It's like, so, like, we know he's at the end of his career, like, we got him off the couch 2 years ago, and luckily lucked into him being fantastic for us. Like, he's been huge for us. But, like, we know, like, that it's the end of the road, right? So yeah, hopefully, all we can do is hope and pray that Huff has a full recovery back from this injury. And man, the two of these young guys back there, I'm gonna have a lot of confidence in that safety room. And like, Jair Brown's, like, he's such a ball hawk. He
Mhm.
could have had 3 picks in this last game. He already had a pick in the first
He
game.
was
Like,
yep.
it's, and we know Huff, he gets interceptions as well. So to go from this start, like, I know people were huge fans of Jimmy Ward and the Tart combo. But like, I hated that they didn't ever get freaking interceptions. Like, I
Yeah.
couldn't stand it, like it just pissed me off. And like, I love Jimmy Ward, but like, I couldn't stand Tart. And like, I love the fact that we're gonna have a duo that's actually ball hawks back there.
Yeah, and they're pretty versatile too. Like and the trust that the 49ers are showing in Jair Brown
Yeah.
shows, I think, like they trust this versatility. Like they have him up there single high. Sometimes they bring him down to the box, similar to like Hufunga's role. So I think having two guys like that, they're gonna just take over the entire field between the both of them. So it's good for the 49ers for sure.
Yeah. So let's get into this Arizona game for a little bit and then we'll get out of here. You were at the last game. I'm going to be at
Yeah.
this next game.
Yeah.
I leave tomorrow to go to Arizona. I'm super, super excited. We got a full day of events from like, we got to leave seriously at like 6:30 from the hotel Saturday morning to go to like start getting ready to go to all the festivities on Saturday. I'm like, oh my God, I'm too old for this already.
You'll have fun though. It's gonna be a
Yeah,
blast.
yeah, I can't wait. And um so yeah, I'm hoping that the 49ers, the faithful show up and show out like they always do, and that we take over the stadium, because I think
Oh,
that's
they're
like,
going
I'm
to.
always having such FOMO that to watch everybody else take over the stadiums, and I'm like, oh, I want to be there with them. So finally I get to be there with them and take over. So yeah, I'm super excited.
Miriah, did you see that? I think it's Vivid Seats projecting 61% 49ers
Yeah, I
fans.
saw.
So they're gonna
Hopefully
be
it
in that
continues
thing.
to grow.
They're gonna be in that
Because all
thing.
the 49er fans I know haven't even bought their tickets
Oh
yet.
my
So
god. They're
um,
waiting to get the Carolina Panthers 45-cent
did you
price.
see that? Like, that's
Yeah.
crazy. I saw that post, but I don't know. I don't think that's true, because I was in a space at the time and they went to like Vivid Seats or whatever and looked it up. And the seats were, though, starting at like, it was like $14 for the lowest seat. And they were like,
That's
it's
pretty
good
cheap.
seats too. I'm like, that's crazy. Like, oh my gosh. But obviously we know this game, the defense is beat up. Um, but obviously, Tanya just said too that Banks didn't practice today due to a hip injury. So we have that on the offensive side. Burford hasn't been practicing.
I think he
Um,
returned today.
oh, okay, so that's good.
Yeah.
Defensive side, though, as you mentioned earlier, Armstead's supposed to be still out. Hargrave
Mhm.
hasn't practiced. C. Ward, Travis Ward was like off doing side of the field stuff, right? Like, I have more hope that he's gonna play like out of anybody. Don told us earlier in the show that Greenlaw, that they said, I don't know if he said or the organization said, but somebody said Greenlaw is playing.
Okay.
So we'll see about that. But yeah, there's quite a few injuries on the 49ers side. How are you feeling going into this game?
Okay, yeah. I guess Steve Wilkes said that Greenlaw will play.
Oh,
That
okay.
already in itself makes me feel
Is
like
good.
so
Yeah.
so much better
Mm-hmm.
because the concern obviously with going up against the Cardinals is Kyler Murray. He's had his fair share of like some good games, some good plays against the 49ers because he's so freaking like shifty and fast, very like Russell Wilson-esque, like it's hard to bring him down and chase him down. So that's always the worry. Greenlaw, Fred Warner would be a big part of that, right? So Greenlaw being there is huge for this defense. That already makes me feel better. But on as far as the defensive tackles go, and now Hargrave being part of that, that's a bit of a concern. Kinlaw's been playing great. He's going to have to play probably more snaps than he did this past week. Hopefully, like he's able to stay fresh. Hopefully, they could still like rotate him because I worry about him like getting hurt or
Yeah.
anything like that. But they also have Kevin Givens, they have Kalia Davis, and they're probably going to have to bring up T.Y. McGill from
Right.
the practice squad this week. those guys, needless to say, are not Javon Hargrave and Eric Armstead. So they're going to have some, good games because one of the biggest things was stopping the Arizona Cardinals, not just Kyler Murray, but stopping their run game. And that is with James Conner, right? So, the middle of the field is going to have to be, they're going to have to strap that down. Jair Brown, big part of that too, because he's a good downhill guy. And so if he's on his P's and Q's, I feel good about that. But yeah, I think that's the biggest concern for me, just the interior of the defensive line. I think the corners will, if Mooney Ward misses this game, the corners would be fine with both Ambry Thomas and Lenore. The only concern, of course, is Isaiah Oliver. Which version of him is going to show up?
Exactly.
More often than not, we've seen the bad version, and that, of course, helps the offense move the ball. So that would be my concern. But yeah, Greenlaw playing is obviously huge.
Yeah. And the good thing, Matt Burrows had said, he as well said, the 49ers may have to elevate T.Y. McGill. But as he mentioned here, he played 181 snaps for the team last season. So at least we're not just pulling somebody up that has no experience with us, is, maybe a rookie or, somebody, it's at least a known commodity. So, I feel a little bit better about that, but hopefully we don't have to have him, even if they don't pull him up. Even if they do pull him up, hopefully he doesn't play no extended amount of snaps, right? Because if he does, that means something else happened. So hopefully Kinlaw, like you said, Kalia Davis, I want to be seeing more of him anyway, see what he can do. And yeah, Givens, like this is all guys like we know that can fill in, but obviously it's a drop off from our starters, right? So kind of still a little scary there. And as let me pull this up, where'd it go? Trey McBride, that's their tight end, right? That seems to be like their go-to guy. Hollywood Brown hasn't been practicing. He didn't play last week. He's been out with a heel injury. Their rookie wide receiver, Michael Wilson, he had been out, but he's back at practice. I got in a fight with some fantasy guy yesterday on Twitter because he said that, look at what he tried to say, take Michael Wilson in fantasy, because he said, look at what the 49ers corners gave up to the Eagles wide receivers. And I'm like, oh, so now you're comparing Kyle Murray to freaking Hurts, right? And you're comparing Michael Wilson, a rookie, to the wide receiver corps of the Eagles. Like, yeah, okay. Like yeah, sure. Go ahead. Take Michael Wilson, buddy. I hope you do. I'm like, I don't know what kind of fantasy expert you are, but like, get the hell out
I
of
liked
here.
Michael Wilson coming out of the draft, but this game, I don't see him having like that big of an impact. As far as Trey McBride goes, yes, he's a huge part of their offense right now. He's a very talented player. The 49ers defense has done a great job defending against tight ends, though, pretty much allowing just an average of 37 yards per game to tight ends and just 2 touchdowns to tight ends this season.
Yeah. Shout out, Randy. We appreciate you always hitting up both the chats, showing love. Score prediction this week. Let me give you what I got so far. I'm going with 35-13. Regardless if half the defense is out or not. TL is going 31-10. Ryan, who's in the chat, No Border Sports, is going 35-6. And Bashar, our other co-host on Tuesday night, is going 35-10. So Tuesday night, all three of us gave our score prediction. I had already written mine down. I didn't say anything. They give theirs. They both predict that we're scoring 35 points. And then I go on to give mine that I predict we're scoring 35 points as well. So
do I need to go 35 too? Like,
I don't know. TL went 31. We're doing the over 30 crowd. So don't be
I'm
letting us
going over
down.
30 this one. It just feels like a safe bet. It feels like this is a game where, Kyle knows they might have to score a little bit more just with the injuries, just play it safe. Let's get out of there. It'd be great as well if we can be up so high that you can rest some guys in the fourth quarter. I'm going to say 38
Ooh.
to 38 to 19.
I like it. I like it. If I could be there watching the 49ers drop a 40 burger on these fools in their home
Like, no
stadium, I'll be
right?
very happy.
Exactly.
Chat, what you guys got? Alberto says 42-3. I'm all for that. That'll be amazing. Randy says 34-13. Very good as well. Sin 31-17. So, a lot of confidence in our 49ers. I think we should feel that way. We're fans. That's what we're supposed to do. Any closing thoughts, Steph, before we get out of here?
No, I'm excited. I'm glad to learn about Greenlaw and him being able to play. I feel encouraged about Mooney Ward too, honestly. So I feel good about this week. 49ers with a win are going to clinch the NFC West. Yep. So, just another step closer to the real thing and playoff time.
That's right. Real quick, Dina says 30-10. So still 30 burger. I'm for it. Steph, what else you got going on this week? Let the people know.
Yeah, I mean, every Friday I have my preview show, and it's a pretty in-depth preview show. I go through some of the cautious and favorable matchups for the 49ers every week. So we're going to be looking at the, which matchups favor the 49ers in this one and which one maybe favors the Cardinals, although I can't imagine there's going to be a lot, Miriah. So, but it's going to be a fun show. With my co-host on Fridays, Lori Fitzpatrick. And then Sunday, going to check out that game and I'm going to be doing my live post game after.
Sounds fabulous. Make sure you guys check it out. And like I mentioned at the beginning of the show, if you weren't here, make sure if you are here on my channel, 49 Faithfully, that you are subscribed to Steph 49K as well. The link to her video, super easy, is in the description of my video. So click it, hit that subscribe, vice versa. And yeah, this is obviously the last show of the week for me. I head out to Arizona in the morning. So those that are going to be there, if you see me, come say hey. If you're going to be at any of the events, festivities on Saturday, including John Chapman's on Saturday nights, see me there, come through, say hey, would love to say hi to you guys. And yeah, chat, we appreciate you guys so much, as always, for being here. You guys are the best. Steph, you are the best as well. I appreciate you. And we will be back to see you guys next week with another bird down for the bird buffet. Bird's the word. We're out of here, faithful.
Have fun. Peace.